Hello, my name is Matt. Welcome to Unbearable 73. Today we're reviewing Sandman Universe Lucifer Volume 2. So, this volume encompasses issues 7 through 13 of Sandman Universe Lucifer. Like the rest of the series, it was written by Dan Waters, drawn by Max Fuimara, Sebastian Fuimara, and Kelly Jones. The original series cover art was done by Tiffany Terrell, Sebastian Fuimara, and Dave McCaig. Tiffany Terrell did the cover art for the graphic novel collection, which is on your screen right now. Steve Wands did the lettering for the entire series. Letters are very underrated, by the way. It can make a big difference in your enjoyability of reading something in a comic book. So let's do a little background here. So in my previous review, I sort of rambled on a bit about the history of Lucifer as a character and what happened in what we used to refer to as Volume 1 of the series, meaning that the first comic series with that name. That's how comic series used to be thought of, as Volume 1, first series, Volume 2, second series, and so forth. From now on, I'm going to use the methodology that we now use for TVs and movie shows. So I'll say the name of the series followed by a year. The first series then becomes Lucifer 1999. That was a mini-series that's also called Sandman Presents Lucifer. The second series becomes Lucifer 2000, which was the original 75-issue run. That's iconic and it's one of my 5 favorite comic series of all time. Mike Carey wrote that. That picked up right after the mini-series. The third series is Lucifer 2016. That was DC's first attempt to follow up on the prior series. It's not canon to the series now, which is a follow-up to Lucifer 2000. Okay. And now finally Lucifer 2018, which is Sandman Universe Lucifer. Okay. In my previous review of Volume 1, I was unsure where the story content stood in relation to the events of either Sandman or the Lucifer 2000. Because at the end of Lucifer 2000, Lucifer had a very definitive end. He was done. Okay, so in my view, any story you ever gonna write about him again, okay, I'm not gonna describe how he was done, but any story you ever write about him again needs to be set before that to be consistent with a good outcome for the character. Okay. Now it appears obvious that Gaiman and Waters have set this series somewhere between the departure of Lucifer from hell, which happened in Sandman, and before he gets his wings back in Lucifer 2000 number 8. That would also explain his limited powers. While he's still vastly powerful without his wings. He's billions of years old. His knowledge, knows magic, all sorts of stuff like that. Lucifer, basically, when he had Morpheus cut his wings off, he segregated his infinite will of God that he received from Yahweh, the power that makes him Lucifer, basically, the Lightbringer, and much of his archangel powers into that because he wanted to not be involved anymore. Now, so this volume concludes the opening story arc, which is it was issues 7 through 13 of the 2018 series. So we finally want to close all the events. Now, Lucifer has always had a couple of exploitable weaknesses prior to the last third or so of Lucifer 2000, when he seemed to gain a degree of maturity about some of it, and only retained one obvious weakness after that, which is why it ended the way it did. Now, and not that anyone other than Yahweh could possibly exploit that final weakness, but Yahweh sort of did and sort of didn't. And just read the original series; it's excellent, Now, however, the weakness that was exploited here was Lucifer's lack of attention to details. Now, some people are going to say it's overconfidence, but that's off to me. It's not how I would describe it. Prior to losing his wings, Lucifer never had to pay attention to every single detail because of his power set. Either something would happen and he had the infinite will of God to shape anything to his will. It's like, oh no, I walked into the bar and the person I didn't want to see, I wanted to have a drink, was there. He could just alter the universe to be there, so to speak. Or he could unwind time, or he could be omniscient. He could be selectively omniscient. He could turn on and off, okay? Because the way the infinite will of God works. However, even though he lost all that power, he tends, especially early in the Lucifer 2000, to not pay attention to every detail. And that's kind of when his enemies would exploit him a bit. So when he entered this other dimension he created inside the skull, Jack had entrapped him in part due to the nature of the construct. Now, if Lucifer had his full power set, he could basically just will it away, but he obviously was limited. So the first issues in the volume are more about how Lucifer dealt with his entrapment, how Sycorax manipulated events to secure freedom, and how Caliban was manipulated to work against the interests of his mother and father. The set of issues in this volume involves Lucifer working to resolve a safe place for Sycorax's soul to go to. So Sycorax, in the storytelling here, was married or dating, or whatever you want to call it, for Lucifer, and they have a son, Caliban. Okay. Now, the reason Lucifer was looking for a safe place for Sycorax's soul to go to, because in the sort of Christian structure, she would go to hell, which Lucifer no longer rules, and he won't go back there because of his nature. He could go back there. Well, that's offers open to him to begin with, to go back and take his wings back and just go back and rule hell forever. You know, because it's well, whatever. So Raguel, who is the angel in charge of dealing with the circumstances in this story, basically it comes across as a cheap shot at Lucifer. He basically dictated Lucifer's resurrection of Sycorax can only last 3 days, as that was what Yahweh did for Christ. The angels have largely drunk the Kool-Aid that Lucifer and Yahweh are at war with for souls, and they're not. Lucifer could care less about it. He wants nothing to do with the plan or anything in it. That's his biggest problem, you know. So, what do I think about all the events in this collection? Now, I enjoyed Lucifer's vision of various pantheons afterlives to evaluate if there would be an acceptable place for Sycorax. It's always one of the great things about Gaiman working this sort of vertigo area that Gaiman sort of created, but others sort of dwelt in. But you need to understand something like Neil Gaiman's writing and the world he constructs. It's more about telling the tale and the exploration of the journey than it is about the end result of the story. It's not to say that Gaiman does not value a satisfying ending. All I am saying is that Gaiman prefers that you see the actual trees individually and the forest as a whole. Okay, both. Okay? And he clearly is ensuring that Waters is following that storytelling model. I almost didn't enjoy Caliban's arc until the very end. I won't spoil it, but it made sense given the nature of the characters. Raguel's story arc was very satisfying. See, the thing is this. Lucifer knows there's a plan. In fact, he knows the plan more intimately than anyone besides Yahweh, pretty much since Lucifer fulfilled Yahweh's second creation to fulfill that plan. Okay? So you'll find that Lucifer repeatedly defeats his enemies, not by willing them away. At one point in the first series, he says to Duma, or I think it's Duma, one of the two angels who's taken over hell for him, he says, I could literally erase you from existence if it weren't for Yahweh's plan. We'll put you back in the next second. You know, so he knows the plan won't let him alter it willy-nilly, so he has to use more subtle manipulations, but he almost prefers to manipulate his enemies into defeating themselves, and that's basically what he does to Raguel here. Yeah. I also enjoyed the conclusion of Sycorax's arc. Won't spoil it again, but it makes perfect sense. Okay? And my only disappointment is that my favorite character in in Lucifer in general, Mazikeen, didn't really feature much. Actually, had some cool moments. Pretty much anything Mazikeen does is cool. You know. Thoughts on the artwork? The artistic style that's used in these books fits the tales. Now, I'm not going to say it's the best example of the slightly, I guess you would call it fuzzy around the edges style. Find a page where I'm talking about. So, a fuzzy around the edges page might be. Okay, here we go. So, if you look at the pictures of Caliban and the other angel over here, I don't know if you can see it. Okay, here, it doesn't come across great. The edge details tend to blend in. It's kind of like making you less focus on the art and more on what they're doing, like the depiction, like this positioning and stuff. Whereas other, what point I'm getting at is this, okay? Because I'm not an art critic. I can't break it down that way. Okay. While there are distinctive pictures and paneling in places, very specific details, there's a lot of this blending effect used. And I've noticed in this story in particular that when the artists become more distinctive versus when they use more blending, I think it relates to the emotions and the experience of the character that they're going through at that time. Okay, so if you read this after I review it, it might be something to pay attention to. Final thoughts here. I wasn't sure I'd enjoy this follow-up to Lucifer 2000. I mean, the first DC attempt to follow it up was in the New 52 was an entire complete joke. Okay, which most of the New 52 was, to be honest. I avoided the 2016 series because DC's been doing crap and going woke for years. Though I did later reach some decent reviews about it, so I might eventually, get it in graphic novel format. When I saw that Gaiman himself was overseeing this, I decided to give it a shot. It's worth it. These are stories I definitely will reread on occasion, and that's the bottom line when it comes to reading material. Do you want to read again? Comment down below if you have any questions for me or about this video or the contents therein. Please share your thoughts. Share this video if you enjoyed it. Like if you like. Dislike if you dislike. Subscribe if you want to hear more from me. My name is Matt. This has been Unbearable 73. Have a nice day. I am out of here.